Telling my husband I was pregnant should have been a moment of joy, a moment of shared wonder for the future. Instead, it turned into a battleground where expectations clashed with bitter truths. I still remember the way he looked at me that night, as if I had announced something monstrous rather than a blessing. I sat on our threadbare couch in the living room, cradling a cup of lukewarm tea, my heart racing as I mustered the courage to speak. "I'm pregnant," I said softly, voice quivering with equal parts excitement and fear. I added, "and I want to work from home to be with our baby." The silence that followed was deafening. His eyes narrowed, and I felt a pit forming in my stomach. "Work from home? That's just selfish," he spat out, his tone laced with contempt. I tried to understand his reaction, but my mind was racing. How could he possibly think that wanting to be there for our child was selfish? His words cut deeper than I expected, and I felt the first seeds of betrayal take root. Over the next few days, our home turned into a war zone of unspoken accusations and clashing ideals. He resented the changes I hoped to bring, my desire to step back from the corporate grind to reshape our lives around the new arrival. His anger wasn't limited to that one comment. It had been simmering for months, a quiet anger that erupted over small things, late nights at work, missed dinners, a disinterest in our future. Now, with the promise of a child between us, his true feelings surfaced. I spent hours pondering over the conversation, replaying every word in my head. I'd always believed that love would bridge any gap, that we could weather any storm. But as the days passed, his dismissive tone grew louder. I tried reasoning with him, asking why he saw my plan as a threat rather than an opportunity for us to embrace something new together. Instead, he grew defensive, shutting me out. His refusal to even consider the possibility that I was acting out of love stung deeply. I began packing my bags in secret. Each item I placed in my suitcase was a silent testament to my disillusionment and the courage I had to reclaim my life. With every shirt, pair of shoes, and cherished memento, I was leaving behind a version of myself that I no longer recognized. A version that had put up with a man who had once promised to love and support me unconditionally. The night I decided to leave was unlike any other night in our shared history. I had planned everything meticulously. I woke before dawn, careful not to disturb him as I moved quietly through our home. My heart pounded in my ears as I zipped up my bag and took one last look around our apartment, a space that had once been filled with hope and laughter, but now reeked of bitterness and resentment. I was determined to leave, to reclaim my autonomy and the promise of a better life for both me and my unborn child. Just as I reached the front door, the sound of a car engine roared outside. I froze. Had he been expecting me? I whispered to myself, not tonight. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The door burst open behind me. He was there, his face contorted with a mix of anger and desperation. "You're not going anywhere," he barked, lunging forward. I barely had time to react. The door slammed against my body as he attempted to push me back, his hands grabbing at my arms. In that moment, I felt the culmination of every betrayal, every dismissive word, every cold shoulder. I struggled against him, adrenaline surging through my veins as I fought to free myself from his grasp. My heart hammered as I realized that this was more than a dispute. It was a declaration of war. I managed to break free and dart out the door, fleeing into the darkness of the early morning. Behind me, I heard him shouting, threats laced with venom, promising that I would regret this for the rest of my life. The chill of the night air did little to cool the burning fire of betrayal that surged within me. I knew that forgiving him was never an option. This was not a story of heartbreak and reconciliation. It was a story of retribution and reclaiming one's dignity. In the days that followed, I found refuge with an old friend, a safe haven where I could gather my thoughts and start planning my next move. I spent hours scrolling through forums and reading stories of betrayal and revenge, drawing strength from the shared experiences of countless others. I was determined to ensure that he would never again be in a position to hurt me or our child. I began piecing together a strategy, meticulously planning every detail of the downfall I was about to orchestrate. The first step was to secure my finances. I opened a bank account under a pseudonym, funneling away every spare penny from our joint accounts before he could notice. Each transaction was a small victory, a silent declaration that I was taking back control of my life. I knew that the battle was not just about escaping his clutches, but about ensuring that he would suffer the consequences of his actions. I could no longer afford to be the victim in this narrative. I had to become the architect of my own justice. I worked tirelessly from my new home office, the glow of my computer screen a constant reminder of the freedom I had won. Every keystroke, every email sent, was a step further away from the life I had once known, a life marred by manipulation and abuse. I connected with a lawyer who specialized in domestic disputes, gathering evidence of his attempts to control and coerce me. I documented every instance of his abusive behavior, every time he had belittled me or tried to limit my independence. The evidence was damning, and it fueled my determination to ensure that he faced the full consequences of his actions. I spent sleepless nights drafting emails and preparing legal documents, my mind focused solely on the task of dismantling the life he had built on lies and control. I reached out to mutual friends and family members, subtly alerting them to the toxic environment he had created. I knew that once the truth was revealed, there would be no turning back. His carefully constructed facade would crumble, exposing him for the manipulative, selfish man he truly was. One day, as I was gathering more evidence, I received a message from someone who claimed to have once been close to him, a former friend who had witnessed his darker side. The message was brief, but it confirmed everything I had suspected. He wasn't just selfish, he was dangerous, capable of inflicting deep emotional wounds and leaving a trail of broken lives behind him. This confirmation, painful as it was, steeled my resolve. I could no longer hide in the shadows of his deception. I had to bring his true self into the light. I began to plan my next move with the precision of a seasoned chess player. I arranged meetings with old colleagues, slowly weaving together a narrative that painted him in a different light. I shared my story in carefully worded emails, ensuring that every detail was documented and every emotion was raw and unfiltered. My once private pain was now a weapon, one that I would wield with calculated precision. The day finally came when I decided to confront him with the evidence. I invited him to a neutral location, a quiet cafe that had once been our favorite spot for lazy Sunday brunches. As I sat across from him, I could see the surprise in his eyes. He had expected a reconciliation, perhaps even a tearful apology, but instead, he was met with a steely calm and unwavering resolve. I laid out every piece of evidence I had collected, every instance of his cruelty and manipulation, leaving no room for him to deny the truth. "You call me selfish?" I said, my voice cold and measured. "I call you a coward, a man too afraid to face the consequences of his own actions." His face flushed with anger, and for a brief moment I saw a flicker of the man he pretended to be. But that illusion was gone, replaced by a raw, unfiltered rage. I handed him a copy of the evidence, a final parting gift that he could never escape from. I left that cafe with a sense of liberation that was both exhilarating and terrifying. I had exposed his true nature, and there was no undoing what had been done. I knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, that he would likely retaliate in ways I couldn't predict. But I was ready. I had taken back control, and I would not rest until he was held accountable for every hurtful word, every act of manipulation, every moment of pain he had inflicted upon me. In the weeks that followed, the fallout from that confrontation was swift and merciless. Mutual friends and family members began to see him for who he truly was, and his carefully constructed image began to crumble. I watched as the social circles he had so meticulously curated turned their backs on him one by one. The legal proceedings moved forward, and with every document submitted and every witness testimony, the truth became undeniable. His attempts to paint me as the villain were met with overwhelming evidence that told a very different story. I kept my focus on the future, on building a safe and nurturing environment for my child. Every moment I spent working from home, every step I took towards rebuilding my life, was a reminder that I was no longer a victim. I was a survivor, and now, a warrior for justice. My evenings were spent drafting detailed accounts of my experiences, posting them on online forums where others could find solace and strength in my words. The response was overwhelming. Women and men from all walks of life reached out to share their own stories of betrayal and recovery, and I felt an unspoken bond forming among us. We were survivors of a system that had once seemed impenetrable, and together, we were forging a path towards healing. As the legal case against him came to a close, the verdict was a public spectacle, a final, resounding statement that abuse and manipulation would no longer be tolerated. I watched as he was forced to confront the reality of his actions, his future unraveling before his very eyes. The satisfaction I felt was not born out of cruelty, but from the knowledge that I had reclaimed my power. There was no forgiveness in my heart, no desire to see him redeemed. Instead, I embraced the bitter sweetness of revenge, a reminder that sometimes justice is the only cure for a shattered soul. Even now, as I sit in the quiet of my new home, I can't help but reflect on the journey that brought me here. The pain, the betrayal, the moments of doubt, all of it coalesced into a single, unyielding determination. I had been pushed to the brink, forced to confront the darkest corners of my own heart, only to emerge stronger and more resilient than ever before. My child, a living reminder of the future I was determined to create, had become the beacon that guided me through the storm. Looking back, I see now that every moment of heartache was a stepping stone on the path to liberation. I was once shackled by the expectations of a man who refused to see the beauty in vulnerability, who would rather lash out than embrace the complexities of love and ambition. But now I stand free to love, to grow, and to build a life defined by my own terms. The scars of betrayal remain, a testament to the battles I fought, but they no longer serve as a source of pain. Instead, they are symbols of victory, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, the human spirit can find a way to prevail. I share my story not out of a desire for pity, but to offer a glimpse into the strength that lies within each of us. If you find yourself caught in the web of betrayal, remember that the power to reclaim your life is within your grasp. Sometimes the journey towards healing is paved with hard choices and painful confrontations. But know this, forgiveness is not always the answer, and sometimes the only path forward is to stand tall in the face of adversity and demand justice. As I prepare to welcome my child into a world that I have fought so hard to reshape, I remain vigilant. I know that the scars of the past can sometimes reopen, and the memories of betrayal linger like ghosts. Yet, I am resolved to forge a future filled with hope and possibility, a future where the legacy of pain is replaced by the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Every day, I honor the strength that carried me through those dark times. I work, I write, I share my experiences with those who need to hear that they are not alone. I am no longer defined by the actions of someone who called me selfish, someone who tried to hold me back from realizing my dreams. Instead, I have become the author of my own destiny, a destiny that is built on resilience, determination, and an unwavering commitment to justice. Now, as I type these words, I realize that my journey is far from over. Life has a way of presenting new challenges, of testing our resolve in unexpected ways. But I am prepared. I have learned that the most satisfying revenge is not found in petty acts of retribution, but in the quiet, unyielding strength of a person who refuses to be broken. My story is one of pain, yes, but it is also one of triumph. A triumph of the human spirit over the cruelty of a world that sometimes fails to understand the meaning of true love. To anyone reading this who has ever been betrayed, who has ever felt the sting of harsh words and shattered dreams, know that you are stronger than you think. You have the power to rebuild, to transform your pain into something beautiful, and to stand up for the life you deserve. I did not choose the path of forgiveness, and I do not regret the choices I made. I chose justice. I chose to reclaim my narrative, to ensure that the man who once called me selfish would never again have the power to hurt me or those I love. This is my story, a story of betrayal, of the painful journey to reclaim one's life, and of the ultimate victory that comes from standing up for what is right. I share it in the hope that it inspires others to find their own strength, to never settle for a life defined by the actions of someone unworthy of their love. And as I look towards the future, I carry with me the knowledge that I have not only survived, I have triumphed. In the quiet moments before sleep takes over, I often think back to that fateful night, the moment when my life split into two distinct paths. One path led to the comfortable prison of complacency, where love was conditional and freedom was a distant dream. The other path, the one I chose, was fraught with uncertainty, but it was mine to claim. I had no illusions about the hardships that lay ahead, but with every sunrise, I felt a renewed determination to make my life, and the life of my child, something worth fighting for. I have learned that betrayal leaves an indelible mark on the soul, a reminder of the depths to which someone can sink when blinded by their own ego. But that mark is also a testament to the fact that we have the strength to rise above it. I have embraced my scars as symbols of my journey, not as indicators of my defeat. And in that embrace, I have found a freedom that no one can ever take away from me. To my former husband, I say this: your cruelty and your attempts to control me have not only failed, they have set me free. I have taken every slight, every hurtful word, and I have turned them into the foundation of a new life, one built on truth, justice, and unwavering self-respect. I have no wish to reconcile with the past, for it is in the present, in every hard-won moment of triumph, that I have found my true self. This journey has taught me that sometimes the most gripping stories are not those of endless forgiveness, but those of fierce defiance. I have learned to look in the mirror and see not the woman who once allowed herself to be diminished, but a warrior who fought for her dignity and emerged victorious. I want every person reading this to know that no matter how dark the night may seem, there is always the promise of a new day. a day when you can stand tall, unburdened by the weight of someone else's insecurities. Now, as I continue to build my life, I remain ever watchful of the subtle reminders of the past, transforming them into lessons for the future. I have found a deep, unshakable peace in knowing that I did what was necessary for me and my child. The road to justice may have been long and treacherous, but it has led me to a place where I can finally breathe freely. And in that freedom, I have discovered that the true essence of revenge is not destruction, but the quiet satisfaction of knowing that you have reclaimed your life. In the end, this is not a tale of bitterness. It is a celebration of resilience. It is a story of how I took a moment of betrayal, transformed it into a catalyst for change, and emerged on the other side stronger than ever. I will carry the memory of these events with me, not as a burden, but as a reminder that even in our darkest moments, we have the capacity to shape our destiny. So here I am, living a life that I never imagined possible, a life defined by my own terms, a life of unyielding strength and purpose. I share this story in the hope that it resonates with anyone who has ever been made to feel less than they are. May you find in these words the courage to stand up for yourself, to demand the justice you deserve, and to build a future free from the shadows of betrayal. This is my truth, raw and unfiltered, and it is one that I will continue to live every single day. And as I prepare for the next chapter of my life, I do so with a heart that is both scarred and emboldened by the journey I have traversed. The road ahead may be uncertain, but I face it with a newfound clarity, a clarity born of pain, perseverance, and an unrelenting desire to claim the happiness that is rightfully mine. I refuse to allow anyone to diminish my light again, and with every breath I take, I honor the strength that carried me through the darkest nights. In sharing this story, I offer a promise to myself and to all those who have ever been betrayed, that we will rise, that we will fight, and that our revenge will not be one of blind fury, but a measured reclaiming of the power that is inherently ours. This is the legacy I choose to leave behind, a legacy not of forgiveness, but of relentless justice and the unyielding determination to live life on our own terms.